Remember when a beef burger actually tasted like beef? When you could throw a couple of patties in the pan and smell that rich, meaty aroma filling the kitchen? When the burgers held together properly, developed a proper crust, and didn't shrink down to the size of a biscuit the moment they hit the heat? Those days feel like ancient history now, don't they? The British public deserves better. We deserve to know which brands are taking us for fools and which ones are still delivering what a beef burger should be. Simple, honest, and actually made from beef. So today, we're counting down the 8 worst beef burger brands you'll find in UK supermarkets right now. From budget disasters to premium pretenders, we've gone through the reviews, the complaints, and the horror stories from real customers who've been let down one too many times. Is your go-to brand on this list? Let's find out. Let's start at the bottom with a brand that pretty much everyone knows. Iceland, the freezer shop, the place you go when you need something cheap and quick, and their basic beef burgers are exactly that. Cheap, quick, and absolutely forgettable. These burgers sit at the rock bottom of the price range, and you get exactly what you pay for. Actually, you might be getting less than what you pay for. The beef content hovers around the legal minimum, which means the majority of what you're eating isn't beef at all. It's rusk, it's water, it's binding agents, and whatever else they can legally stuff into a patty while still calling it a beef burger. And you can tell, the moment these hit the pan, they start releasing water. Not a little bit, rivers of it. One reviewer described cooking a pack of 4 and ending up with what looked like burger soup in the frying pan. By the time they were done, the patties had shrunk so much they barely covered half the bun. Then there's the taste, or rather the complete lack of it. Multiple customers described these burgers as cardboardy, bland, and weirdly spongy. One person said they tasted more like compressed sawdust than beef. Another wrote that even their dog turned his nose up at the leftovers. But here's the thing that really gets people. It's not just that they're bad, it's that they're insultingly bad. When you're charging money, even bargain basement money, for something called a beef burger, there's a certain minimum standard people expect. And Iceland's budget range doesn't even clear that low bar. So yes, they're cheap. But at what point does cheap stop being worth it? When you're left with a soggy bun, a grey shrunken patty, and a meal that tastes like disappointment, that's when, for number 7, it's Rustlers. Now I know you're thinking, Rustlers? Really, they're not even trying to compete with proper burgers. They're convenience food, emergency rations, the thing you grab at a petrol station at 2 a.m. when nothing else is open. And you'd be right, but here's why Rustlers deserves a spot on this list. Because millions of people are eating these things. Students, shift workers, people in a rush. And Rustlers is charging them £2 to £3 for a single burger that comes pre-assembled in a box, ready to nuke in the microwave for 90 seconds. The problem? It's genuinely one of the most depressing food experiences you can have in modern Britain. Let's start with what you're actually getting. The beef patty is thin, grey, and pre-cooked within an inch of its life. It sits on a bun that's been engineered to survive months in a warehouse and then 90 seconds of microwave radiation. There's a slice of what they call cheese, though it bears little resemblance to anything that's ever been near a dairy cow. And there's usually some kind of sauce trying desperately to convince you this is an acceptable meal. The reviews are brutal. People describe the patty as rubbery, tasteless, and disturbingly soft. The bun goes from hard to soggy in seconds, often developing a texture that one reviewer perfectly described as like a damp flannel. And the overall experience is what you'd expect from food that's been designed to survive a nuclear apocalypse rather than actually taste good. One customer summed it up perfectly. I've had better burgers from a school canteen, and I went to a really rough school. But here's what makes Rustlers particularly offensive. It's the price. You're paying premium money for what is essentially the worst possible version of a burger. No flame grill, no fresh ingredients, no care whatsoever. Just industrial food engineering in a box. And yet people keep buying them. Because they're there, because they're quick, because sometimes you're drunk and tired and the petrol station is the only thing open. But let's be honest with ourselves, there's absolutely no situation where a Rustlers burger is worth your money. Moving from microwave disasters to freezer aisle disappointments, we arrive at Asda Smart Price Quarter Pounders. The clue is right there in the name. Smart Price, the budget range, the absolute cheapest option Asda can legally sell you. And that's exactly what you get. These burgers claim to be quarter pounders, which technically means they should be about 113 grams each before cooking. But here's the problem. The moment they hit heat, they shrink faster than a wool jumper in a hot wash. By the time they're cooked through, you're left with something that barely qualifies as a slider. The beef content sits at the legal minimum, somewhere around 60 to 62%, which means nearly half of what you're eating is not beef. It's rusk, soya protein, water, and a collection of binders designed to hold the whole mess together. And it shows. Customers complain that these burgers fall apart during cooking. The texture is described as mushy, gritty, and oddly bouncy all at once. One reviewer said they tried to flip one and it basically disintegrated in the pan, leaving them with what looked like grey mince rather than a burger patty. Then there's the flavour, or the complete absence of it. Multiple people describe these burgers as tasting of absolutely nothing. No beefiness, no seasoning, just a vague, meaty suggestion wrapped in disappointment. One person wrote that they had to smother it in ketchup and fried onions just to make it remotely edible, and even then it was a struggle. But perhaps the most damning review came from someone who said, "I bought these once, never again. I'd rather pay double and get something that actually resembles a burger." And that's the real problem with Asda Smart Price Quarter Pounders. They're cheap, yes, but they're so bad that even people on tight budgets find themselves spending more money elsewhere just to avoid the disappointment. When your product is so poor that it drives customers away from your own store, you know you've got a problem. Number 5 is Sainsbury's Basics Beef Burgers. You'd think that Sainsbury's, a supermarket that positions itself as slightly more upmarket than some of its competitors, would have a better handle on quality, even in their budget range. But their Basics Beef Burgers prove that assumption completely wrong. These burgers are a masterclass in corner cutting. It seems they have minimal meat content, maximum filler, and a complete absence of anything that might be mistaken for quality or care. The first thing people notice is the texture. Before you even cook them, they feel wrong in your hands. Soft, almost squishy, like they might fall apart if you look at them too hard. And when you do cook them, that's exactly what happens. Reviews describe these burgers as crumbling, breaking apart, and generally failing to maintain any structural integrity whatsoever. One customer tried to make burgers for a family barbecue and had to abandon them completely because they kept falling through the grill. Another said they attempted to flip one and it split in half, leaving them with 2 thin, sad pieces of whatever it was supposed to be. The flavour is predictably terrible. People describe them as bland, gristly, and with an odd aftertaste that lingers unpleasantly. One reviewer said they tasted chemically, though they couldn't quite put their finger on what was causing it. Another simply wrote, "These don't taste like beef. I don't know what they taste like, but it's not beef." And here's the kicker. Even at the budget price point, people feel ripped off. Because when something is this bad, even £2 feels like too much. You're not saving money if you end up throwing half the pack away because nobody wants to eat them. Sainsbury's Basics Beef Burgers are proof that the Basics label isn't just about price, it's about basic in every sense of the word. Basic ingredients, basic effort, basic respect for the customer, which is to say, almost none at all. For number 4, it's Morrison Savers Beef Burgers. We're now entering territory where the complaints get more creative, more colourful, more damning, and Morrison Savers Beef Burgers have earned their place in the bottom 4 through sheer consistency. Consistently terrible, that is. These burgers sit firmly in the budget category, and like the other budget options we've covered, they're built on minimum meat content and maximum disappointment. But what sets Morrison Savers apart is the sheer volume of complaints about their appearance. Even before cooking, these burgers don't inspire confidence. They're pale, they're uniform to an unsettling degree, and they have that distinctly processed look that makes you wonder whether anything natural was involved in their creation at all. But cook them and things get worse. Multiple reviewers mention that these burgers release so much liquid during cooking that they essentially boil rather than fry. The water pools in the pan, the burgers steam in their own juices, and by the time they're done, you're left with grey, rubbery discs that bear little resemblance to anything you'd want to eat. The taste matches the appearance. Bland, slightly chemical, and with an odd greasiness that coats your mouth in a way that feels wrong. One customer described eating one as a deeply unpleasant experience from start to finish. But perhaps the most telling review came from someone who wrote, "I bought these for a barbecue thinking I'd save a few quid on the burgers and spend more on the sides. Massive mistake. Everyone ate the sides and left the burgers on their plates. I ended up throwing away half a pack. False economy doesn't even begin to cover it." And that's the problem with Morrison Savers Beef Burgers. They promise to save you money, but they're so poor that you end up wasting money instead. Money on a product nobody wants to eat. Money on food that goes straight in the bin. Money on an experience that makes you wish you just paid a bit more for something edible. In at number 3 is Tesco Everyday Value Beef Burgers. Now we're getting into the really bad territory. The brands where the complaints aren't just about quality, they're about whether these products should even be allowed to call themselves beef burgers at all. And the name tells you everything you need to know. Everyday value. Not finest, not premium, not even standard Tesco. This is the absolute bottom of their range, and it shows. The meat content is the bare minimum required by law. Everything else is filler. Rusk, soya, water, and a cocktail of binders and stabilizers designed to hold it all together. And even with all that engineering, these burgers still manage to fall apart with alarming regularity. Customers describe them as watery, tasteless, and with a texture that's somewhere between rubber and cardboard. One person wrote, "I've had school dinner burgers that were better than this, and I went to school in the 80s when everything came out of a tin." But what really sets Tesco Everyday Value apart is the smell. Multiple reviewers mention an odd, off-putting smell during cooking. Not rotten exactly, but not right either. One customer said it smelled processed and artificial, which isn't exactly what you want when you're supposed to be cooking beef. The shrinkage is legendary. These burgers start out a reasonable size and end up looking like something you'd serve to a toddler. One reviewer measured before and after and found they'd lost nearly 40% of their size. That's not cooking, that's vanishing. And the taste? Well, there isn't much of one. What little flavor exists is vaguely meaty, but mostly just bland with an unpleasant greasiness. Several people mentioned having to drown them in sauce just to make them remotely edible. And even then, it was a struggle. One particularly brutal review summed it up. "These are what you buy when you've completely given up on life. And even then, you'll regret it." Tesco Everyday Value beef burgers aren't just bad. They're an insult to the concept of a beef burger. And they're an insult to anyone who buys them thinking they're getting value for money. Right, we're into the final two, the worst of the worst. And in the silver medal position for sheer awfulness, we have Lidl Meat Master Beef Burgers. Now, Lidl has built its reputation on being the budget option that sometimes surprises you. Their middle aisle is legendary for random deals, and some of their products genuinely punch above their weight. But their Meat Master Beef Burgers, absolutely not. These burgers have achieved something quite remarkable. They've managed to unite customers in shared disgust. The reviews aren't just bad, they're almost poetic in their disappointment. Let's start with the basics. The meat content is low, the filler content is high, and the result is something that barely qualifies as a beef burger. But beyond the numbers, it's the experience of eating these things that really sets them apart. Customers complain about a weird, spongy texture that doesn't improve no matter how you cook them. Fry them, grill them, oven bake them, doesn't matter. They stay soft and unpleasantly springy, like you're biting into processed foam rather than beef. The flavor is described as artificial, vaguely meaty, and with an odd aftertaste that several people struggle to identify. One reviewer said it tasted like beef-flavored cardboard. Another wrote, "I don't know what meat went into these, but I'm not convinced it was beef." Then there's the appearance. These burgers cook up grey. Not a nice seared brown with caramelized edges, just grey. Uniformly grey. The kind of grey that makes you question whether you've cooked them properly, even when you definitely have. But the complaint that keeps coming up is the value proposition. Yes, they're cheap, but they're so bad that even at budget prices, people feel ripped off. One customer wrote, "I'd rather spend an extra quid and get something I'd actually want to eat. These went straight in the bin after one bite." Another summed it up perfectly. "I find Lidl usually does decent stuff for the price. These are the exception. These are awful." Lidl Meat Master Beef Burgers prove that even budget supermarkets can get it spectacularly wrong. And when you're competing with Aldi right across the road, delivering products this poor is a choice that's hard to understand. Finally, at number 1, it's Farm Foods Economy Beef Burgers. And here we are, in our opinion, the absolute worst. The bottom of the barrel. The beef burger that has earned the dubious honour of being the single worst option you can find in UK supermarkets. If you've never had the misfortune of trying these, consider yourself lucky, because the people who have tried them are united in one opinion. These are genuinely terrible. Let's start with what you're actually getting. The meat content is as low as legally possible. The rest is a mystery slurry of fillers, binders, water, and whatever else farm foods can legally stuff into a patty while still calling it a beef burger. And the result is something that barely resembles food. The texture is horrifying. Customers describe them as mushy, gritty, and with an odd rubberiness that persists no matter how long you cook them. One person said biting into one felt like chewing a wet sponge. Another wrote, "The dog's food looked more appetizing. The flavor is non-existent." Multiple reviewers say these burgers taste of nothing. Not beef, not seasoning, just a vague suggestion that something meat-related might have been involved at some point in the distant past. One customer said they had to use so much ketchup to make them edible that they might as well have just eaten ketchup sandwiches. But what really sets Farm Foods economy burgers apart is the consistency of the negative reviews. It's not just a few people complaining, it's everyone. There isn't a single positive review, not one person defending them, not even a "they're okay for the price." Just unanimous agreement that these are genuinely awful. One review perfectly captured the experience. "I bought these once during lockdown when everything else was sold out. Worst decision I made all year, and that year was 2020. Another wrote, "I don't think these are beef burgers. I don't know what they are, but they're not beef burgers. They should be illegal." And perhaps most damningly, "I've been skint plenty of times in my life. I've eaten plenty of cheap food, but even at my brokest, I wouldn't buy these again. There are limits." Farm Foods economy beef burgers represent everything wrong with budget food manufacturing. They're cheap, yes, but they're so spectacularly bad that even desperate students and penny-pinching pensioners refuse to buy them twice. When your product is so poor that even people who need to watch every penny won't touch it, you've created something truly special. And by special, I mean terrible. So there you have it, the 8 worst beef burger brands you can find in UK supermarkets. From disappointing budget options to shockingly poor economy choices, these are the burgers you should absolutely avoid. After all that disappointment, you deserve to know where you should be spending your money. So let's talk about the 2 brands that are actually getting it right. For number 2, it's Aldi specially selected British beef burgers. Right, let's cleanse the palate with something that actually delivers. Proof that even budget supermarkets can get it right when they try. Aldi specially selected British beef burgers are everything the economy options aren't. Proper meat content, usually around 85 to 90% beef, proper texture that holds together during cooking, and proper flavor that actually tastes like beef should taste. These aren't fancy gourmet creations with exotic ingredients. They're just well-made, honest beef burgers. And that's exactly what people want. The reviews tell a completely different story from everything we've covered so far. Customers rave about the quality, especially considering the price point. One reviewer wrote, "These are better than burgers I've paid twice as much for at other supermarkets. Proper beefy flavor, great texture, and they actually stay together when you cook them." Another said, "I was skeptical because of the price, but these are genuinely excellent. They've got that proper char on the outside, stay juicy inside, and don't shrink to nothing. Can't fault them." The key seems to be simplicity. These burgers aren't trying to be something they're not. No gimmicks, no over-engineering, just good quality British beef formed into proper patties. They develop a nice crust when you cook them, they maintain their size, and they taste the way a beef burger should taste. Multiple customers mention using them for barbecues and impressing guests who couldn't believe they came from Aldi. That's the ultimate test, isn't it? When your guests think you've spent a fortune and you've actually spent a fraction of what they'd guess. One fan summed it up perfectly. "Why would I pay £6 for rubbish from a premium brand when I can get these for half the price and they're twice as good?" Aldi's specially selected range proves you don't need to spend a fortune for quality. So there's your first option, Aldi specially selected. Proof that budget supermarkets can absolutely compete with anyone when they focus on quality over cutting corners. And for the top spot, it's M&S Select Farms British Beef Burgers. The absolute best beef burgers you can buy from a UK supermarket. We're going premium. But this time, premium actually means something. These burgers are what beef burgers should be. High meat content, usually around 90% or higher. Proper seasoning. Quality British beef that you can actually taste. And a texture that's everything the budget options aren't. Yes, they're more expensive. You're looking at £4 to £5 for a pack of 4. But here's the thing, you're getting what you pay for, and when you compare them to some of the so-called premium options from other supermarkets that charge similar prices and deliver garbage, these represent genuine value. The reviews are overwhelmingly positive. People describe these burgers as restaurant quality, properly flavored, and with a texture that's firm enough to hold together, but tender enough to be juicy. One customer wrote, "These are the best supermarket burgers I've ever had. Hands down, they taste like something from a proper burger restaurant." Another said, "I've tried every burger from every supermarket over the years, and these are consistently the best." They're what beef burgers used to be before everyone started cutting corners. What sets them apart is the attention to detail. The beef is well seasoned from the start, so you're not just tasting bland meat. They develop a beautiful crust when cooked properly. They don't release rivers of water. They don't shrink to half their size. They just cook up perfectly, time after time. Multiple reviewers mention that these are their go-to for special occasions. Family barbecues, dinner parties, those times when you want to impress, and they consistently deliver. One particularly telling review said, "I stopped buying beef burgers from supermarkets years ago because they were all rubbish. Then I tried these from M&S and it restored my faith. These are proof that you can still get a proper burger if the company actually cares about quality." And that's really what it comes down to, isn't it? These burgers taste like they were made by people who actually care about making a good product, not by a corporation trying to squeeze every penny of profit out of mystery meat and filler. Are they the cheapest option? No, but they're worth every penny. And when you consider that you're getting burgers that actually taste good, that don't disappoint, that make your meal something to enjoy rather than endure, the extra cost makes perfect sense. M&S Select Farms. British beef burgers take the top spot because they're everything a beef burger should be and nothing it shouldn't be. Simple as that. So there's the full list. 8 to avoid and 2 that are absolutely worth your money. From the disasters at farm foods to the excellence at M&S, the difference is night and day. The takeaway? Don't assume that cheap means bad or expensive means good. Some budget options are terrible, but Aldi proves you can get quality without breaking the bank. And some premium brands charge premium prices for mediocre products, but M&S shows what premium should actually mean. Let us know in the comments which burgers you swear by and which ones you've tried and regretted. Have you had the misfortune of trying any of our bottom 8? Or are you a loyal fan of our top 2? We want to hear your stories. And if you're still watching, leave a comment with the word beef, so I know you made it to the end. Your support means everything and helps us keep creating content that tells you the truth about what you're buying. Thanks for watching, and remember, life's too short for terrible burgers.